Hello, welcome and a very good evening, and we have the 1541 Frankenstein back on the table basically. I repaired this in a previous video, and if you haven't seen that, check it out. Link is in the video description, or I will put something up here. This is basically put together from two different drives, and yeah, it's a nicely working 1541. However, as 1541s go, it does run a bit hot due to the two voltage regulators inside. So today we want to mod it and put some modern voltage regulators inside. So we'll open this up, and maybe we will do some other stuff later as well, but that's our main goal for today. Let's take a look. So I quickly disassembled the 1541. This is not particularly interesting, but I took out the board that you have seen before in my other video, and the things that we want to replace is these two voltage regulators here. These are the 7805 for the 5-volt rail and the 7812 for the 12-volt rail. They will be replaced by these modern counterparts, which do some switching transformations, basically switching power supply style. Not sure if this is a buck regulator or something. I have no clue about electrical engineering. So yeah, but these are made by Easy SBC. This is the PSU 6, which is a replacement for the 7812, a 1 amp 12 volt voltage regulator. And this is the PSU 5, which is only a 3 amp rated thing. So I hope I won't blow it, because the 7805 is rated up to 5 amps, I think. The whole of the 1541 assembly is rated at 25 watts, but that's split across both voltage regulators, the 12-volt rail and the 5-volt rail. My hopes would be that the 12-volt rail will use up to 1 amp roughly, or a little bit less, for the motors, etc. in the drive assembly. And that the 5-volt rail, which feeds all of the electronics here, will not be 5 amps. Otherwise, we might see some nice smoke. Why didn't I buy the replacement for the 5 amp version? Simply enough, it's out of stock at the moment, probably due to the chip shortage or something, so I can't get it. But I wanted to do the mod nevertheless, because I thought, well, 3 amps should be ample, but yeah. Let's see. One other mod that we could do is to mod the transformer, which is this huge chunk here in the case of the 1541. It transforms down from the mains voltage, which is 230 to 240 volts currently in Germany, down to something less that these things here can transform further. However, back in the 80s, the mains voltage was 220 volts. So right now the transformer outputs something higher than it used to. So these two have to work even harder and will produce more heat than expected, basically. Anyway, what we'll do now is we will open up these screws and nuts, basically, which are on the bottom side, desolder the two voltage regulators and replace them. And then, with a little bit of luck, this whole thing won't blow up. We will test it, of course. Please leave a comment if you already did such a mod and can tell me whether the 3 amps is actually sufficient, or if there are certain scenarios where all the circuitry here has to work so hard that it might blow whatever this thing can deliver. Yeah, so I hope I don't damage the board too much. I do have replacement boards, working ones. My main problem is getting the drive assemblies. Those are more or less hard to acquire nowadays, or more or less impossible to get a hold of. But now let's unmount these and put the new ones in. So the 5 volts on the right side and the 12 on the left. So our little operation is done. Here you can see the two new voltage regulators. These are the old ones. They are still fine, so I will keep them. They can come in handy, depending on, well, I mean, they do have probably a couple of 100 hours of work in their life, but there might be a couple of 100 more. So that's fine with me. Yeah, this was actually pretty easy. There's some kind of insulating rubber or something here. Maybe it's not insulating, I don't know. Maybe it's also for thermal coupling or something. I left it in there. I don't think it will hurt. Shouldn't do anything, I guess. On the bottom, it was actually pretty easy to desolder and solder. Again, that's fine. The pins are a bit sticking out, but I checked. There's nothing there. The transformer is roughly here and still a little bit below all this stuff, so I'm not gonna snip them off just yet. They can't damage anything. And now we can reassemble the whole thing and check out if it actually works. So the drive is assembled again. It is not yet turned on. I will hold this floppy at the ready. It is the whole floppy is connected to my 486 with Star Commander, which can read and write C64 disk images from real 1541 floppy drives using a special parallel to serial cable on the 1541. I'm gonna flip the switch. It's turning on. That's good. It also stopped turning. It has a green light, which means it's good. It did a reset on its own. I'm gonna insert the drive, floppy in the drive. Now I'm gonna fetch my keyboard and switch to drive 8. And this sounds already pretty good. And yeah, this looks pretty decent. Let us do a quick copy of this disk into some disk image. Let's call it test D64. Actually, it's what is it? The word is not enough by Bonsai, but let's just call it test D64 and see if it actually works or if it will blow up. And there you go. That seems to be working just fine. I'm gonna touch these things. They're very cool to the touch. Even after 2 minutes of running, the old voltage regulators would have warmed up quite a lot. The ROM chips are all cool. The VIA chips are slightly warm, and the CPU is the warmest currently, which I think is quite to be expected. I think this is a success. It does seem to work. Floppy drive still works, and I think it will run much cooler. Of course, the transformer will still be putting out a little bit of waste heat, but this will be much better. Yeah, I'm happy. Let's put this thing back together and wrap it up. So, that is our 1541 modded. It runs much cooler and hopefully will have many more decades of life. I mean, it is from 1987-ish, at least the PCB and the chips are. So it is already 35 years old. And with a little bit of cooler voltage regulators, maybe we can make it another 35 years. Probably the mechanism, the drive, will give out first. But, well, what do you know? Perhaps in 30 years' time, someone will be able to 3D print those heads and mechanisms. Who knows? Currently, there's no replacement for that. If that breaks, then you're done for, and you have to switch to something like the Pi 1541 or an SD2IC or something similar. But for today, that's it. Thank you for watching. Please share, like, and subscribe as usual. Most important, leave a comment, leave a thumbs up. And I hope to see you next time.